trigonometry.
Prove that the sum of the angles of a triangle equals 180 degrees. I told you this morning that what I'm going to do is to try to work out what I call a meta scheme, M-E-T-A, like metaphysics, or for understanding the kind of work that we're doing in Buddhist global relief. And this is still in a very experimental stage. My ideas are not really fully well defined, still a little bit, quite a bit indefinite, just taking shape. And if some of my ideas seem strange, heretical, at least unorthodox, I remember when we were children, there used to be these comedies in the movies, maybe like Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, or Laurel and Hardy, where one of them thinks that he can be a singer, and he goes to the vaudeville show and he comes on and starts singing, but his voice is terrible. So while he's on stage, a sort of cane comes out from behind the curtain, grabs him by the neck, and pulls him away. So if some of the things that I'm going to be saying seem to be a little bit like Jerry Lewis singing a song with a broken voice, don't hesitate to take out the cane and pull me out the door and lock me out the monastery with a one-way ticket back to Chuanyan Monastery. Take your ideas there, but don't bring them here. And if you also think that my ideas disqualify me from being the chairperson of Buddhist global relief, tell me and I'll step down. And in the process, I'm trying to integrate 2 or 3 different schemes that I've been working out in my mind. And I didn't really have, well, I had the time, but I didn't use it economically and wisely, and so things are still in a state of a little bit of entanglement. So let me leave this diagram a little like a mystical diagram without telling what the abbreviations mean. And instead start from a different perspective. And maybe I'll make this a little bit biographical. I think it's a biographical background which a number of you share. That is, I went to Sri Lanka to ordain as a monk in 1972. My first 5 years there, I was very happy as a traditional Orthodox Theravadan monk. Then I spent 5 years back in the United States, then went back to Sri Lanka, 1982, again to live there as a monk. Then as the years went by, maybe coming into the 1990s, mid-1990s going on, I began to feel this sort of, maybe you call it a cognitive dissonance between trying to be a very orthodox, traditional Theravadan monk, at the same time recognizing that I'm a human being living within the contemporary world. And I came to be repeatedly struck by the clashes in worldview that one encounters between what one is indoctrinated or expected to accept as a monk or traditional religious follower, and dimensions of experience, of understanding that are opening up, that have opened up through the contemporary world and just don't provide a very comfortable fit with the type of understanding that one gains as a traditional Buddhist. And so I've come to something of an understanding that Dharma, Buddhism, to be really living, vitally important, to be a Dharma that's alive and that blows open the mind, it has to be applied against the background of the period in history in which we're living, and directed not only to the great universal problems that all human beings face, but also directed to the special overarching problems of this historical period in which we're living. And so this began to affect certain transformations in my understanding of Dhamma or Buddhism. And I might compare this, just to use as something of an analogy or a simile. It's a little bit like a software program, maybe say Microsoft Word, which will work on different versions of an operating system. So as the operating system changes and the company that makes the operating system updates its operating system, then sometimes the older versions of Word won't work on that operating system. But the basic principles of Word are the same. But in order to get Word to work on the newer operating system, one needs an updated version of Word. So I'm not saying that the Dhamma as the essential principles are to be updated, but the way these principles are interpreted, the way they're understood, the way they're applied, has to be continually reinterpreted, and applied in accordance with those compelling, overwhelming needs of a particular historical, social, and cultural background in which the Dhamma finds itself. Otherwise, we find ourselves clinging to an archaic, traditional picture of the world, which clashes with contemporary modes of action, understanding, and communication. And now I've tried to develop my understanding against what I would call the evolution of human cultural forms through the ages. And I've developed, and this is not in any way original to myself, but this is maybe based on other thinkers, a scheme of 3 stages in the evolution of human culture. And each stage is extremely complex, and a particular stage might be realized more completely in certain parts of the world than in other parts of the world. But still, I think we can sort of make a general distinction between these 3 historical stages of human culture or human understanding. I call these the traditional, the modern, and the postmodern stages of cultural understanding. Okay,